Hi, everyone. I'm Barbara Bray. This is the Rethinking Learning series for the Emergency Home Learning Summit. And I'm so glad you're here with me today. I also have a link below where you can register. If you haven't registered yet, you can register through my link. And do you see who I have here with me? It's Ilene Winokur, and I'm so excited. So let me just share uh, why you're here. I don't even know if people realize that I'm in California and you're in.
I'm in Kuwait.
Yes, and this is one of the things that I love about our, using Zoom and Google Meet and all these other tools is we can find a time to meet and have these wonderful
Yeah,
talks. So,
yeah.
Ilene, just share a little bit about you and before we start.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. I'm so excited to be here and be with you for this summit. I am a blogger, a podcaster, and I'm in the midst of writing a book, all with a focus on belonging. I've had more than 25 years of experience in teaching and administration at the elementary level and also at the pre-college intensive English level, all here in Kuwait. I've lived here since 1984, and I am passionate about anything education and about connecting with educators. And so I'm so excited to be a part of this and to be able to support educators through your summit presentation and also through the summit itself.
Oh, wonderful. Well, you're also, because, we did connect and somehow we have this bond between us and I love it. So you've also been on my podcast. I've been on yours.
Yes.
We also did a reflection on sense of belonging.
Mhm.
And then when Steve Hargadon mentioned the idea of a sense of belonging, it just made, with this so many people feeling lost and not sure
Yes.
and everything, I
Yes.
thought, this is why we have to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so important. And a lot of times it's not labeled as belonging, although I'm hearing it a lot more these days. It's always been social emotional learning, something very
Mhm.
general. And, the fact that we need to take care of our mental health, but exactly what that looks like has always been a mystery to everybody.
Yes. So I just want to let everyone know that Eileen and I put resources together, excuse me, for you. So at the bottom of every slide, and it'll also be a link in a PDF form on the site, is a link, a bit.ly that's home learning dash Bray dash Winokur. So I just want people to know that that's there for them. So I'm going to go to the next slide to talk about you and I. um,
The crazy two of us.
Who would have known?
This
This
is
is,
this is such a great picture of the two of us because this is who we are.
well, it's so silly because that's not who we thought we were when we first met. I mean, I
No.
met, I think 2017, we were at ISTE and we went to the
Yes.
Badge Summit and I walked in and I saw you sitting at a table alone and I sat down with you because I don't like people to sit alone, but I also, it was like it meant to be, right?
Absolutely. Oh my goodness, was it meant to be? In fact, I wrote a blog post which is on the PDF because it was such an impactful moment for me. It really was a changing point in my life. You came over to the table, and I was sitting by myself. It was my very first ISTE, the very first day of my first ISTE. I didn't know anybody, and I had been not at ISTE the year before, and I just wanted to be a part of it. And we started chatting, and there was just so much that we
Mhm,
shared and was in common. And we just had this friendship, which it seemed like we'd known each other for such a long
mhm.
time. But the fact that you made the effort to come over and sit with me on purpose with intention was just so impactful for me. And it really, we spent the rest of the time together, actually. You know, you invited me to several different events that were happening that I had no idea about. And, you know, we ended up the couple of years afterwards being roomies.
Well, you know, that sense of belonging, I feel it's really important to reach out to people. And,
Yeah.
but Eileen, when I first met you, I thought you were family. And then now I know you are.
Yeah, well, we're going to try to find out through our DNA if we're somehow related. That's what we've decided. But you know, the really important thing to me was that knowing you really pulled me out of my shell. I had just started becoming somebody who was a little bit more outspoken. I was extremely shy when I was growing up, but and I didn't often offer my opinion. I was extremely private person, but somehow you just melted all of those barriers. And I think that's really important in terms of belonging, like you said, because you made me feel safe. And you can't feel a sense of belonging unless you feel you're safe with the situation, with the person you're sitting with. And I felt safe right away with you. And that's why I was able to be so silly.
We were really silly.
Yeah.
Okay.
As you can see from the picture, yes.
And so I felt right there because you told me your story. And
Yeah,
actually, we spent all night telling our stories.
we did.
But the idea, I love this quote that you said, belonging is a glue that keeps us together. Maybe that belonging, that feeling. Tell me what that quote means to you.
Yeah, that quote is what I'm all about because I'm here in Kuwait with my husband, who is Kuwaiti, and that's why I ended up here in 1984. But my children are, and my rest of my family and my friends are scattered around the world. But I still feel like I belong with them and to them because there is this glue that keeps us together. There's this bond. And because it's not just blood relatives, it's also friends and people like yourself, Barbara. It's really a special kind of glue. Again, that safe space that makes us feel that we're woven together in some way. And no matter how many years that I haven't maybe seen a friend, or how long it's been since I haven't called or been in contact, there's still that feeling that of belonging, and that relationship that's so important.
It's funny. I know what you mean because um, every time I see you, I feel like that you touch my heart because we connected right away. But then we started, like you said, rooming together and talking and sharing. And then you did blossom. I've never seen anyone blossom like you. I mean, I was like, you tell me you're shy, and next thing I know, you're out there talking to everybody. You're starting a podcast. I mean, you really did open up the doors to let people in, and you make it very comfortable. And so, um, you did tell me one thing. It is also the peace and serenity that allows us to be alone and happy while not feeling lonely. That's what's happening now with so many people. And this, I've connected more now. I just want to say, I've connected more with more people now because people are feeling that way. So I reach out and say, would you like to do a Zoom, or would you like to, do a podcast with me? People are like hungry for it.
Yes, just checking in, which I know both of us do. And I see many people are doing now, even online on social media. We really need to reach out, because just because someone hasn't, I think that's what we've realized.
Yeah.
Just because someone hasn't reached out doesn't mean they don't want to reach out. There are so many reasons why they're not reaching out. And this whole idea of being alone. This is Brene Brown, really. I can't take
Yeah.
credit for it, but the whole idea of being okay to be alone while not feeling lonely. I
Yeah.
call it self-belonging, and it is
Ah,
absolutely the first step to be able to have healthy relationships with others and to feel that you're a part of a community. If you don't feel solid with your self-efficacy, with your self-esteem, all of those things that are part of self-belonging, you can't really move on to healthy relationships because
yeah.
there is something that you still need to work on within yourself. And we're never perfect, but if you feel like you can be alone and not feel lonely, they're two different things, really. It's a strange dichotomy, honestly.
Oh, I know this. And, I do the thing about the why. That's why I put the why
Yes.
first. A lot of people have told me because I've said, what is your purpose? And they feel like their purpose is just flittered out, like there's just
Mm-hmm.
not sure. And I
Yeah.
think when they can have, that idea of the sense of belonging or someone even reaching out or they reach
Mm-hmm.
out and someone says, wow, I haven't talked to you for a long time. I've been wondering
Yes.
about you.
Yes.
Um, I think we have to do that more. Our
Mm-hmm.
why has been tested with this pandemic,
Absolutely.
so it makes it tough. I'm going to go on and to the next slide. I can't remember what we had there. I know I had this.
You love this. Yeah, this is yours. Yep.
Well, this is
I love this one.
well, I love it as Pixar. It's from
Mm-hmm.
Inside Out, I think is the name of the
Right.
cartoon. I mean, a movie. But I found that when I saw that, that's how many people feel. They didn't
Yeah.
even know that what happened to them, they would lose that sense of belonging, even to their self, because they lost themselves. They were
Yes.
used to being around people, going to the conference like you and I did, and
Mm-hmm.
all these things, and everything kind of just stopped. And
Yeah.
so that idea, the why we need
Mm-hmm.
this, I think
Yeah.
we need to touch on this all the way through here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And the whole thing about why we need a sense of belonging during this pandemic, if you read any of the psychologists who have written during the last 6 or 8 months since last March, they are all pressing this point that we need belonging more than we've ever needed it before during this pandemic. And it's the whole idea of feeling that we have a community, feeling that we can reach out, and feeling that others who reach out to us are really understanding our situations, not judging us. The whole idea of toxic positivity, which I've heard lately on social media, is the idea that I have to always appear like everything is okay. No, we need to appear like we're supposed to appear, which things are really not okay. And they're not going to be okay for a while. And I know we're going to get into some of this in the next couple of slides also.
Well, let's go to the next one.
Yeah.
So, this idea, what it means to have a sense of belonging during these times is there's a
Yeah.
lot of things that I think we just talked about, but why don't we go into a little more detail with it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, we know that connection and communication has changed. We mentioned that, but it's all online. Right now, I see my kids who are scattered around the world, as I said, every week on Zoom. I'm blessed that we have that. We never really did that before. I
Hmm.
would individually contact, different couples or whatever, because they're all married now, and we would have separate conversations. But I want to say that it was wonderful. It is wonderful every week to see them sitting in the same space on Zoom and talking to each other, because they haven't always gotten along. But now that they're all in their 30s, I have to say, I feel blessed. And then on Sundays, I get to meet up on Skype with my mother, my sister, and my brother, which is also
Oh.
unusual because, especially, well, I Skype almost every day with my mother, but with my sister and brother, it would be months
Mm.
before, and now we're all, sort of catching each other up on a weekly basis. And
Oh.
as far as teachers and educators, the whole idea of being on social media. I never used to be on social media this much for this type of communication where how is everybody doing? You know, what are you angry about? People sharing in their PLNs what's upsetting them, right?
Yeah.
DMing because they're afraid, you know, sort of they can't feel, they don't feel safe sharing it on general social media, which is understandable, but feeling that they can go to some other group, a group that's safe and a group where they feel they belong. I have a couple of those, and I'm sure you do too, Barbara.
Well, it's interesting. There's a lot of different, I don't know if everyone knows what a DM is. So it's a direct message on Twitter. But what I found is people are reaching out to me that I haven't talked to in so long.
Wow.
And I've had some issues with some people that I haven't talked to in a long time, and they reached out. And we're trying to figure out ways that we can do this in a safe place. So I have some where we play games online. We play Mahjong or some other games. And that's an easy, safe way to get together and giggle and have fun. And we did a family Zoom with the whole family. And my son brought in a game, I can't, Jackbox. So everybody could kind of loosen up a little bit before. So I think what we need to do is figure out ways where we can connect, but check in with, like teachers should check in with students and families. How are you
Yes.
today? You know, first.
Yes, yeah. And that's the whole idea. We're talking, you know, more personal, but in terms of connection and communication has changed drastically for whether you're, I heard somebody call it mask to mask today, but face to face in the classroom, which is mask to mask in most cases, or if you're online, or some days this way, some days that way, which people are calling hybrid. It's the dynamic is different, and
Yeah.
teachers are feeling like they're not really sure what they're supposed to do or what they can do in order to keep those relationships going. Teachers who were very much greeting at the door and you know, tapping on the shoulder and so forth are missing that kind of closeness. And parents, of course, have their kids at home and studying and learning at home. And so the dynamics of the family has changed. So absolutely, connection and communication is something we all need to work on. And I think it's just making sure that everybody knows that we care.
That's right. And the idea about time and place, I keep asking my husband, he always laughs at me. I go, oh, I gotta go get the mail. Hey, it's Sunday. He
Oh,
goes, I
yes.
said, I can't remember the day anymore. It's like they all, when
Yes.
you're home, it's all kind of goes together. But places are different now because
Yes.
you really have to think about, if you're going to get together, how you're going to do it. And if you can't do that, how can you do it online? And some people are very uncomfortable with that. So this
Yeah.
what, you know, it means that, here's the thing, nobody in the whole world is not going through this. Everybody is going through this.
Yes.
I did
Yes.
a workshop in Indonesia and found out they're locked down, and they had the same questions. Same thing with other countries. We,
Yes.
like in Kuwait too, right?
Yes, all education is virtual right now. And gatherings are now prohibited, any kind of gatherings, although the restaurants are open and, you know, a lot of things are open.
Huh.
People are really cautious about going out. Uh, my husband and I are meeting up. We were talking tonight about the fact that we haven't seen his sister in, you know, since this all started, and she's
Hmm.
not well. So
Oh.
figuring out, perhaps now that the weather's a little bit better here, because it's always so hot, that perhaps we could see her outside with masks at a distance for 5 or 10 minutes just to check in on her. But in terms of time and place, it's disconcerting. Every morning I have to wake up. Before I get out of bed, I have to remind myself what day it is and what I'm going to be doing today,
Hmm.
what my goals are. even if I don't finish all of them, maybe what appointments I have and things like that. Just a quick run through so that I settle myself before I get out of bed and, and start my day, because otherwise it's just like I'm retired. And so it could be just like any other day, or I could go back to sleep and not get up at all. So I think it's really, really important for everybody to have some kind of routine, whatever that routine is. If you've got kids at home or whatever, is just to be able to put yourself in a way so that you feel safe and you feel comfortable.
Well, we started talking about the how, but that's okay. We have some other things. But I think when I'm hearing a lot about uncertainty, because people don't know what's going to happen next, I think we need to talk about, let's go to the how right now, and how do we build and grow a sense of belonging. And I'm just going to mention these, and then we're going to talk about each one of these. The idea of having mindfulness, working on the relationships, and embracing grace and hope. So let me go to the first one. And I love this one. It's doing the hard work before the hard work. It's Dr. Basil Marin. He just finished his dissertation, and I'm real proud of him. But this is something I think all of us keep thinking we can do the same thing that we've always done, but it doesn't work that way. I've had to cut back on things or change the way I do things.
Yeah, absolutely. And this really speaks to the idea of learning, both for teachers and especially for students. The research, anything that you read right now is focus on how the students are feeling, check in on them before they start their day, make sure that they're okay before you can start the content. Because if they're not in a good place for whatever the reason, they're not going to be concentrating on the content. They're going to be worried about either what's happening at home, what's happening with their siblings, something to do with their parents, maybe somebody in the family isn't well. There's so many things. So check-ins, teachers, at the beginning of the school year, and even now we're saying, how do we sort of implement what we were doing in the classroom? It's basically just check in with them, see how they're doing. If they want to share, fine. And there are different ways to do that.
In fact, I think we do talk about that. I'll go into this, and then we'll go into some of these ideas that we talked about. What I found after talking to a lot of teachers, actually a lot of people, was that they were doing busy work. Their minds were so full with worry and fear, and that they thought if they kept busy enough, they won't have to think about the things, but they weren't living in the moment. And so this idea of mindfulness, I thought with, I mentioned this is something that anyone can do. If a child comes in and says, I'm scared, my parents are, one of the parents lost work or whatever, some things at home are really troublesome, we need to do some breathing and calming down, and then find out what's happening and set up a meeting with the family, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I know there are teachers who are concerned because students aren't showing up. Students aren't using their video. So it's really hard to tell how they're doing or whether they're even there. And so, we end up getting so busy with that kind of worry. But I think it's important to do what we can to try to communicate with parents, try to make them our partners, try to make sure that the students, depending on their age, know that, we care about them, we're looking out for them. And in fact, I've heard or read about different incidents with whether assignments were completed on time or whether they weren't completed on time, and people, saying that some teachers were treating it this way or that way. And I think it's really important that we first find out the why, like you said, Barbara. What was the reason for the not handing something in or getting something in on time or not turning on my video, because there are many reasons why students don't turn on their video. We need to find out the why before we actually make a determination about what to do about it. And the whole idea of mindfulness is really, you're right, is being present and not so much thinking about what we used to have and what uncertain future and when things are going to be back to a new normal or whatever you want to call it. We need to be in the moment right now and figure out how we can be calm and mindful and okay right now.
Oh, I love that. You said everything I wanted to say, but you said it better.
Oh,
So
well, we do have half mind, you know, half
I-
of me, half of you.
well, because we're talking about belonging, and I do want to bring in relationships. And I love the idea of relationships are the gateway to kids' hearts. And then Manny Scott, who is just an amazing speaker and writer, and this is his last book. Is the title of this is Even on Your Worst Day, You Can Be a Student's Best Hope.
Wow.
I love that. So if anyone
Yeah.
want a book, that's a good book. But you mentioned a few of these. Why don't you go through and we'll talk about these bullet points here, these heart points.
Yes. Yeah. I love that you set it up this way, Barbara.
Thank
Belonging, yeah, belonging before Bloom actually for me replaces Maslow before Bloom.
you.
There are a lot of questions about Maslow and his hierarchy. But if you look into the most recent research, even the neurological research and the physiological research, belonging and feeling safe is absolutely necessary for any kind of learning to happen. That doesn't matter how old you or young you are. And so if you don't feel a sense of belonging and that you're in a safe space, your mind is going to be distracted. You are going to be worried about how to fix that problem or what your parent is doing or what your spouse is, you know, what's happening at home. So we really need to make sure that we are mindful and that we feel that sense of belonging before we can start to learn. Compassion over compliance. Barbara, do you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, well, the whole thing is that we've been teaching compliance for so long that it's hard for teachers to not do what they've always done in the past. And so we're just trying to talk to teachers now about letting go a little bit and be in the moment, look at what's going on and spend some time to really listen to where they are. Because like you said, if they don't have that sense of belonging, they're not going to be there. And they might be sitting there, but their mind, it might not be there.
Right.
And so we need to really think about what is compliance anyway? Why aren't we looking at what they need now? And there's other ways to meet the content. Like I'll go to the next one and then I'll let you. But the idea about relationships first.
Yeah.
I really feel that the technology, when a lot of parents, teachers aren't used to this, that they don't know, they want to hug the kids or they want to greet them at the door, like you said in the beginning, that they may not realize that there's a lot of ways they can build these relationships online or a note or a phone call. Or I've even know some teachers that said, I'm going to drive by your house. There's some things that just to show, like we said, the caring that really helps.
Yeah, I've seen some of those drive-bys. In fact, I saw a private school in Kuwait is going to be doing one with their elementary school kids. The kids are supposed to, are supposed to, because of course there are no open houses or any kind of contact or whatever. And students, have been out of school basically since last March, except for online. So they can make up signs and they can drive by, and they gave them timings and everything like that. And they can drive by and wave to their teachers. And I know that in my niece's neighborhood. They did that in June last year, and the kids wrote on the driveways and hold up signs. It really makes a difference, just to see them, even though you can't hug them. But I think, you're really right about the idea about relationships, Barbara. And even though we can't hug them and physically be with them in many cases, there are so many ways that we can continue to communicate. There are so many apps and ed tech tools that can meet the needs of the moment right now. Things like Bunsy and Wakelet and Seesaw and Nearpod and so many Beluga and so many others are really enforcing this idea of let's make sure that everybody feels safe, secure, and that they belong. And once you feel part of that community, as a parent, as a student, as a teacher, then all of that angst and anxiety, most of it just melts away. We just have to make sure you're so right, Barbara, we have to make sure we keep those relationships at any cost.
Well, I think you covered all of the heart points that are there, because that idea of a safe place, Maslow before Bloom, and the idea of you're actually building the relationships, but it's changing the culture. Even if it's online, you're still there. I love it.
Yeah. And the idea of trust, respect, and each person being valued, something that we talked about when we were sort of setting this all up. You're so right, Barbara. Valuing each and every person where they're at, no matter what state they're in, I think is really, really important.
Well, someone brought up in one of my other talks was about what do you do with maybe someone with a behavior problem? And I go back to the why. There's always something behind it.
Yes.
And instead of punishing the behavior, stop and find out what is going on there. Because something's really wrong. And it won't get fixed if we just keep doing the same old discipline. And it won't work really well in a virtual environment, because then they won't come. So we need to figure out how we can make them feel valued and really work with the families, because there's something going on and we can all help each other. So let's go to the next one. And this is our last one, which when I put it up, you went, oh.
Yeah, I love this. I love the graphic. I love the quote. It's wonderful.
Go ahead. You can talk about it.
Grace is like a blanket of hope that covers you at night when you think you don't have what it takes to get up in the morning. That is something we probably all should have posted right as we wake up in the morning, so that we can remind ourselves every evening and every morning.
I mean, a lot of people have lost hope. And I think if we embrace grace for ourselves, give ourselves some, empathy for what you're going through, and look at ourselves as someone who's valued, someone who, that people should care about. And that sense of belonging that you talk about, I think then it'll give us that blanket of hope we need.
Yeah. And that whole idea about giving yourself grace is so important, because I see so many teachers being so hard on themselves while they're making their extreme efforts and spending so many hours trying to make sure that things go well, and working through all of the changes that administrations or policymakers have put them through and so forth, or, because we're really not sure exactly what works best. And so I just want to say to everybody, give yourself grace, like you said, Barbara. Just give yourself grace and make sure you step back and look at all that you've done. It's the only time you're allowed to look back.
but you can learn from it. And
oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And this is the time I say to everyone, you might have a little more time now. Look at you. What kinds of things can you do? I've written more, and I've talked to more people, and
Mhm.
I've gardened more, and I've done things I haven't done in a long time. So, and I know that you're doing more podcasts and taking that
Yeah,
time.
podcasts and the blog, and also learning how to cook, which I never really liked very much, but taking this opportunity to sort of do some online cooking classes with my Kuwaiti chef nephew. And
Oh,
yeah, which is really cool. Yeah, last week we made roasted chicken with a honey and sesame sauce, and he
yummy.
uses all fresh ingredients from the Kuwaiti farms here, so it's really cool. And it's cool because I get to see him. I haven't seen him in a long, long time, even though he lives across the street, which is really funny.
Oh my gosh. Well, this has been what's really nice is that I have a little bit of ideas of what it's like in Kuwait now. Because I think that people in the United States think that they're the only ones locked down and they're not. I mean, it's the whole world. I've talked to people everywhere that have these concerns. So we're all trying to figure it out and have grace for each other.
That's right. Yeah. And it's so wonderful to see teachers and leaders reaching out and just embracing each other
Yes.
on social media and elsewhere. And it's wonderful, really, that people are trying to come together to sort of overcome this feeling of mass uncertainty about our future and
Mhm.
trying to figure it all out together.
Well,
So
on that note, thank you so much for being part of this home learning summit and my Rethinking Learning series. Thank you so, so much for this beautiful, beautiful conversation.
thank you, Barbara. It was wonderful as always. And I really appreciate your inviting me on and giving me the opportunity to discuss with you these really, really important points about belonging.
Ah, well, I do feel stronger now, just knowing you're there and I can call you up.
Absolutely. Anytime. We're here for each other. I know we are.
Thank you. And I hope everyone has a few points that can help them with their sense of belonging. Thank you. Thank you. And everyone have grace. Bye
Yes.
for now.